All right. Um, Greetings, mathematicians, and welcome back to another math lesson. So today, my goal for this video, well, I should say my goal for this video, rather than today, is to prepare you with some of the vocabulary that we are going to be using when we talk about these things called transformations. Okay, so if you guys are following along with my journal setup, I have my table of contents here, and then if you scroll down a little bit, eventually we will get to our vocabulary, and this is what we're going to talk about in this video. So go ahead, pause the video, take a minute, you can copy down my table here. Doesn't need to be exactly the same, but please include these terms here on the left side. So we have preimage, image, rigid transformation, coordinate rule, prime notation. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about some of these things. You guys may have heard some of these terms before, or they might sound familiar to you, which is great, but if they don't, that's fine too. So let's talk about preimage. You're going to hear this a lot, especially in the videos that you guys are going to watch this week. So what a preimage is really it's the original figure or shape. I'll just say figure. The original figure before a transformation. For a transformation. So before we perform any transformation on this figure, right? That is what we call the preimage. That is our starting figure or our original figure. Okay? So for my example or my drawing here, I'm going to draw a point. And I'm going to label it as point A. Now, point A is what I call my preimage. So this little dot here, this is my preimage because I haven't done anything to it yet. Then I'm going to move point A, and this is a specific type of transformation here. And I'm going to label it A with an apostrophe next to it. In the math world, we say that is A prime. Okay? All right. Let's get into the next vocab word, which we call an image. And I'm pretty sure you can deduce what this is, but an image is the figure after a transformation. So emphasis on after. So if I were to take my example from preimage, right? So point A was my preimage, and then point A prime is what I'm going to call my preimage. So oh my goodness. Forget what I just A is my preimage, A prime is my image. There we go. Because a transformation has happened to it. Okay. All right. Now let's get into this transformation business. Well, what is a transformation? We're looking specifically at these things called rigid transformations. So we are taking shapes, figures, points, pretty much anything, and we are changing them in some way, specifically the position where they are on a coordinate plane. So a rigid transformation, we'll say, is a type of transformation and this is important here, that creates congruent figures. Really big emphasis on congruent here. This is why we call them rigid transformations, because they create congruent figures. Well, what does congruent mean? Remember that congruent means that all of the measurements are the same, whether that be side lengths or angle measures. None of those things are changing. That's why we call them rigid, because they are not changing. Okay? So if you can fit that in somewhere, angles and side lengths, running out of room here, no change. There is no change when it comes to the angles and the side lengths. So our shapes remain the same size, and that is very important. So for the example or drawing, there are 3 types of rigid transformations we're going to look at. And I'm going to bullet point them here. First one is called a translation. Another word for this is a slide. Oops, I ran out of space there. Okay. Second type of rigid transformation we're going to look at is called a rotation. And then the last one is called a reflection, or a flip. There we go. So those are the 3 types of rigid transformations we will be looking at this week. All right. With the transformations, because they are all taking place on a coordinate plane, we have these things called coordinate rules. And how I want you to think about these are, well, it's just a rule that signifies how the coordinates of a point change. Now, with all 3 types of rigid transformations, you guys are going to be creating these coordinate rules. And coordinate rules just tell me, well, how are each of the individual points of a shape changing? So, for example, here's a coordinate rule. So I start with my preimage with the coordinates x comma y. And it's going to undergo a transformation of some sort. And after the transformation, my coordinates look like this. And this is what we call a coordinate rule. Again, it's just showing what is happening to the original coordinates. So my preimage starts with x comma y. My image is now at negative x, negative y. So again, showing how the coordinates of a point change. Okay, so the last vocab word that I have for you guys today is what I call prime notation. And this is going to make talking about transformation so much easier. Okay, so what prime notation is, it's a short way to notate which points are images sorry, it sounded like I had more to say after that. Which points are images, right? So which points have been transformed, okay? So if you notice back on my preimage and image examples, right, I had A and A prime. A being the preimage and A prime being the image. So in our example here, actually I'm going to do a shape because we haven't looked at shapes yet. So I have this square. I'm just going to label it A, B, C, D. And let's say I just slid the square to the right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places. Not 5 places. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 places. There we go. Okay, I call my preimage. Let me label that in here. This is my preimage, the original shape, A, B, C, D. Then after my transformation, these points are no longer A, B, C, D. They are instead A prime, B prime, C prime, and D prime. And this is so that you don't confuse your shapes. You know which one you started with and which one you ended with. Okay? If you were to complete more than two or more than one transformation, you would keep adding on apostrophes or primes. So I've seen things like a triple prime. You could have a double prime, a quadruple prime, so on and so forth. Okay? So you just keep adding apostrophes if you keep conducting transformations. So let's just go ahead and label this guy. So A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime is our image. I'm gonna run out of space here. Actually, let me write it below. So the image, A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime. And that's exactly how you do write it. Alright, that's all the vocab I have for you guys today. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you guys in the next lesson.